So, how did you find the talk? Then.
It's very insightful. It's a good hook for us to start talking now about how to build trust, how you're handling the EU AI Act in your companies, if you are, I don't know. We were given some questions as well about AI and innovation. Maybe we can kick out with them. What do you think?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I'm more of a software engineer and maybe developing and implementing AI. And maybe the way I think about safety is quite different. So I think about safety more in, just like we have in software on maybe in cars or planes or any technology, I think about when they develop a software or a machine, you need to decide or build some safety measures sometimes after, in the sense that just like cybersecurity, you cannot know all the safety measures at the beginning. Sometimes you have to develop some things at the end based on what some people call hacking, 0 days and stuff like that. So that's the perspective in which I see AI safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't remember the question. I was wondering that we have a moderator, but I'm just kicking now my thoughts out there. But because of the safety regulation, which Dan was mentioning and you were mentioning, I was having a conversation this morning with Bernie, who walked with me, and we were talking about autonomous driving. And I thought that's a great example to discuss how can we try to balance innovation and safety issues, because of course we want to drive autonomously as well as Tesla or Waymo in the US, but we still don't have it in Europe because of so high regulations, as said. But I was wondering, do we really want to kick out machine learning systems or any AI systems, which is only accuracy for, I don't know, 80%? Or is safety regulations helping us to have a better AI, trustworthy AI? You know what I want to say? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so the entire discussion about innovation and regulation is a discussion that I feel very passionate about, because I don't know if I agree with the assumption in the first place. I don't know if I agree with the assumption that regulation inevitably leads to a lack of innovation. I think there's questions worth asking here, for example, is which type of innovation do we want, right? There is, I think usually people associate innovation with that type of technical progress that will translate into economic gains. And I don't think that's necessarily the only type of innovation we want. There are also social innovation, things that society could benefit at large. And like examples of it, I think now we talk a lot about AI and then unfairness and then transparency and explainability and safety and etc. And that's a good thing that regulations are coming to tackle it. And a way I think we can show that there is innovation despite the regulation is that nowadays we have companies like yours, which is precisely trying to achieve those goals. This is an entire market that in the past did not necessarily exist. So for example, a non-AI related example, but I work for a company that does identity verification, right? So if you want to open an account, an online banking account, you need to have a selfie, your document. This is a type of market that only exists because nowadays we have AML regulations asking banks to do so. So a company like I work nowadays, if it wasn't for regulation, it wouldn't exist. I think that's innovation, because before you would need to go to a physical branch of a bank and do it, and nowadays you don't have it anymore. Think companies like yours who can audit algorithms, so on and so forth. It's also a type of company that wouldn't exist if we were not discussing those things. And as a result of these discussions, having regulations. So this is a bit how I see this point. And I feel especially passionate when we talk about the EU in specific, because I think there are so many other structural factors at play besides just regulation that results in the current lagging we have in the EU when it comes to technological developments. I can go into that further, but yeah, how do you see this alleged conundrum?
Okay, maybe I'll tell you a bit about my background. So I studied computer science and did my master's in machine learning. I worked a bit in the self-driving car in Mercedes and also at Bosch, self-driving cars, so autonomous driving, and then worked in different companies. So one of the major things is, for instance, you can see in Europe, we are lacking behind in a lot of technologies because the regulations, like when we were discussing yesterday, regulation and technology are going at different speed. So the regulation is 20 years behind, technology is moving at speed of light. So when you regulate things like that, you delay the technology for like 20 years. So example in autonomous driving, Mercedes would have built something better for a long time. But sometimes we need to get the data from the US, for instance. So you want to build self-driving car in Europe, but you have to get the data from the US. Because to get some of this permission, it takes 1 year. And Tesla has gone so far. And that's why you cannot meet up with those companies. Louis yesterday was saying the same thing. If you want to build something, you have to move, and Dan also said the same thing. You have to move the same speed with people that are building it. So you cannot move 20 years behind and you expect them to build something. And this is the reason why, for instance, we miss out in cloud, we missed out in mobile phones, we miss out in a lot of technology, and we are missing out in AI now. Because most of the time, everybody just talk about regulations, and no one is talking about also how these companies are not bounded by the EU alone. They're bounded by the US. They're not built here, so you can't really regulate them. You don't know what they're doing. You only get the byproduct of anything they do. You don't build, and we don't really build because we don't have the opportunity to build that. And the way I think about it is not as if we should not have policies or we should not have safety, but then we can also build safety on our own. As I said, you have cybersecurity companies. They are not building softwares. So they are building safety for softwares. So we have now, so in our Pi data, I spoke about AI safety. And the AI safety I was speaking about was more, if you have a prompt, you want to remove some human identifiable data. If you have an image, you want to remove some couple of things that makes it unsafe. And we can build software, we can build AI to do some of those things. So if we look at it from that perspective, not just, oh, don't build. If you say don't build, no one is going to build anything. But if you say, oh, build, we make mistakes, and then we can correct some of these mistakes by looking at what mistakes we make. No one can know directly how far we can go if we don't move. So now the problem we see now is you stop everyone from building something. Like many people that are building software or building tools or building LLMs, they see that they can't do anything. They can't get data here. They can't do anything here. So it's more on yeah, there should be regulation on safety and ethics and things like that, but you need to collaborate with people that are building it so they can understand the challenges. Now we don't even understand the challenges. We're only building regulations, but we don't know what the regulations are doing. Now the AI Act was, as I think one of the panel mentioned yesterday, they didn't put LLM. They don't know what LLM was when they built AI Act. So the AI Act is for machine learning that they built in 2008.
Yeah, but now it's included, right? Now
How
it's
many pages?
What?
How many pages is the LLM that is included?
No, but there is an entire part of the EU AI Act now that handles precisely general purpose AI models, including LLMs. There was indeed, when the act was proposed in 2021, was not included, but at the very late stages of negotiation of the act, that was actually the most heated part of the discussion about it, they were included. Maybe far from being perfect, but they are now. Zamina, how do you feel about it?
So what I observe in the market, and I really don't like it, to be honest, is this black and white thinking that, okay, we need regulation, please regulate, or no, we don't need regulation because it slows us down in innovation. And I don't like this misconception of the EU AI Act, and we have just had this informative session from Dan telling us, okay, you do some marketing algorithm, you do some budget optimization, then you are not affected by the EU AI Act. You can do whatever you want. But if you have data, sensitive data, medical data, data in the banking industry and then deciding if you get a credit volume or not, if you have a patient diagnosis or a wrong diagnosis or anything which makes decisions for your personal life, then you have stricter regulations, which means transparency. Why is the system deciding that I get less credit volumes in the banking industry? Because I'm living in the wrong postal code? Is that correct? Is that fair? Is that ethical? No, we don't want that. And because these things happened already in machine learning systems, now we have this safety regulation issues. And I think when we think about that in different facets of systems, right? You do something in the gaming industry, okay, then fine, do it. LLMs, text generation, that doesn't affect my personal life. But if it affects your personal life, then we should think about what we do with this system, and decision making will be made with AI systems. And that's really, I have a strong opinion that we want fair and ethic values inside. And I think also it gives us the opportunity to think in these stages, okay, this affects someone, and gives us the opportunity to build good AI.
No, I just want to double down on what you said, that the relationship between innovation and regulation is oftentimes much more nuanced than what this dichotomy plays it to be. And having that said, I also would like to demystify a bit what this word regulation is and break down into actionable acts, because you have the UAI Act, which sounds very scary, and oh my God, there's so much to do, and the compliance costs and the deadlines and yada, yada, yada. But when you break down to what you have to do, if you are part of it, right? Because it's not all companies, it's not all AI systems are regulated to it. I think it was said here yesterday that most of us here will not have to handle it on a daily basis. Also, it's not the aim to prohibit everything. It's a very specific sets of systems that are prohibited, and only those high risks that needs to follow what the Act tells us to do. And what does the Act tell us to do? It's things that I don't know, coming from working with the data science on a daily basis, most of the things I can see the data science in my company, they already do. They don't know they are doing it. But for example, having a type of risk management, trying to map which risks your system has before you put it into development and trying to think ways of how to address these risks, they already do it. Maybe they don't have a risk matrix. Maybe they don't follow necessarily all the recommendations from the ISO standards in risk management and AI, but they have the idea on how to do it. So as a compliance specialist, what I try to do is to systematize it, is to put into policies and make sure that we transform what they have this intuitive feeling of doing into something that is actionable, a process, so on and so forth. By doing that, you already tackle Article 9 of the EUA Act, which is the risk management. Or other things, for example, how to have data governance. Most of the companies, I like to believe, pay attention to what the GDPR tells us to do. If you think about having data governance for AI, it's not too far-fetched from it. If your company is already paying attention to the GDPR, you're going to incorporate some of those principles in there and try to replicate it on how your systems process data, either in the training stages, in the deployment stages, so on and so forth. So I like just to demystify this idea of how severe the UAI Act is, because first, it doesn't tackle all the companies, and when it does, you know, if you transform it into a checklist, it can be you can do it, right?
Yeah. What do you think, John, about what Natalia just said? Because, I mean, for me, it's the normal, that's the right approach, right? We look at the data, how good is data quality, first stage. Second stage, okay, we test the models, how good is the coverage of the cases. And then the last thing for me is always monitoring of the results of the machine learning system. I mean, that must be your daily job, no?
Okay, you spoke about decision making with AI. AI is not the one building the system. So we have the models, and we have what you do with the models. So we have LLMs, right? You have recommender systems. Mm-hmm. But what you do with them is you, not the system. So you need to first know the difference between those things. So you can, just like the internet, you can use the internet for something good or something bad. So what you do with what you have is one thing. So regulating how you use some things is important. You can regulate on, okay, you want to use LLM for, I don't know, spying, whatever. You want to use it for deep fakes or something like that. Yeah, there are things like that. But then building of this model themselves, they are different things entirely. For instance, there was this new act in California. I'm not sure people in the US understand that they stopped that because the act was more on the size of the model, was more on the size of, so those kind of things, you stop the development of AI if you are focusing on the size. That's not the problem. The problem is how it's used. The problem is the safety you're talking about is more on the usage, not really the model itself. Mm-hmm. And that's where I want us. So there should be safety, and that's why we also need some safety at the end user, not just on the development side. So most of the time when people talk about policy and safety, they are mostly, I mean, we need policy, we need safety, but we also need this at the development side, which is after some of these things have been done. How do we use this? That's the point I'm coming from. So it's not just that we shouldn't have safety or AI act, and that's why what I'm trying to build is what I call like prompt safety, because most of the prompts, the way we use these things are the problem. Yes, there are some problems in the development that we can only know after. I give you an example, which I think I spoke with someone yesterday. So when they were ad recommender system, they built recommender system for shops. And the AI or the models automatically just knew that knew when a lady is pregnant. That was not the goal. The goal was not to know when a lady is pregnant. But the way it knew was just that, okay, if someone buys this thing this month, next time it's going to buy this, and next time it's going to buy this. That was just a pattern. That's human pattern. Mm-hmm. And that was not built in the model. The model just understood that. And sometimes if you also listen, of course, everyone knows that some issues with finances and things like that, you see that there are some patterns some of this model learned just by our own given data. And then we need to also like think about that, not just about the development alone, but more also on how it's used, how to protect it after it's been built. So that's that's what I wanted to say about that. And for what you said, the EU AI Act is not extremely bad or not extremely good. The only thing is that things change. You need to change as things move on. You need to talk to experts, not just people. I mean, I don't know how it's built, but you need to also talk to experts. You need to understand the challenges of people building it, not just build it outside those kind of people using it. And then the other thing is allow people to also decide how they want to use this thing. When I mean the customers that you want to protect. Some of them, for instance, another issue is maybe things like ads and things like that. Some people don't want to pay for some things because they can only pay with their data. It's sad, as Matthew mentioned, everything is driven by money at the end of the day. Everything is driven by money. Every company wants to make money. And now what they tell you is either you pay with money or you pay with your data. Unfortunately, that's the way things are. So that's my comment about that.
Yeah, so I'll first reply about placing some responsibility in the user side of the equation, because I think, cannot talk about all regulations, but the UA Act does that, right? So users of high-risk AI systems have set of obligations to follow, and also users of models that can generate content, so AI models that can produce, for example, deepfakes, also need to pay attention to some requirements. Having that said, I think you touched in an interesting point about understanding the other side, right? So not only having regulators dictating rules without knowing the pain in the real life. I cannot talk about the EU Act because I was not making it. I like to believe that because they discussed it for 3 years, they took into account as many point of views as they could, given the time they were doing it. But in my daily life, trying to do advanced AI ethics in Sumsub, you are absolutely right. Like, empathy is awfully underrated, but I cannot produce policies that my data scientists won't enact. I need to talk to them and I consult them about absolutely everything. One of the first measures we took in order to advance governance in Sumsub was to create an AI working group where we brought to the same table the data protection officer, the chief information security officer, me, head of AI, data intelligence, and we take all the decisions together. And I find it funny because I was producing the first policy ever, which was like general AI policy in Sumsub, where I laid out the principles that we should follow in the company and those very buzzwords that, you know, fairness, etc. And then I made this policy and I was like, okay, let's approve it. And then the AI team asked it to read. And I was, okay, it's read. Usually they don't want to read anything. But I was like, okay, yeah, there you go. 7 pages, you can do it. And then they read and then they left so many comments. And I was so surprised asking me what a principle is. Because I saw AI principles, and I was finally I'm going to use my master in ethics for something. There you go. Principles are ABC. And now I can say like wholeheartedly that they embraced it. Now they know that when they want to build a model, they need to take into account, you know, the fairness and accuracy, and they know it's a trade-off. And we are still a company, and we want to make money. But the fact that we create an environment where we can at least discuss those things and see how and if we can implement them, I think that's a pretty great advancement already.
Maybe looking at the good side of this topic, because I mean, back in the days when GDPR came, it forced many companies to implement these rules, and for example, it created also side effects, right? Good side effects. Maybe it forced companies to have a well-structured data set, and then they could build up big data solutions, new things out of that. What do you think? Will the EU AI Act and the legislation create positive side effects here in the European market?
Just like you said, spent some time talking with these people that are building it. And at the beginning, they had questions, right? That's the thing. So you needed to change something after they asked questions, right? Or you just left it like that?
I explained to them what fairness means, and then we said, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was kind of the process.
So that's the thing. Over time, there needs to be more discussion back and forth. And they need to be updated very often. So this is the part where we miss things sometimes, because we develop this thing and we wait a long time to see the side effect of it. Most of the time needs to be iterational. Like things are moving fast, you need to also move with it. And that's the part where I feel we can improve on this. No, we need AI hacks, true. But then how do we build it? Do we speak with these people often? How often do we speak? So we debut for 3 years, right? Doesn't mean it's good, unfortunately. It never means it's good because it's built for 3 years. The only reason what we can do to make it better is speak with these guys. Now we have LLMs. Tomorrow we are going to have something different, inflection and whatever, change of thought. For instance, I'll give you an example. What I'm thinking of is, can we do some protection on maybe system prompts? One is talking about system prompt. These are kind of things that we should be talking about. And apart from the government getting involved, we also need to do our things on our own, in the sense that let us also build tools that will protect this AI and make some safety and some policies. So there should be some tools to know, okay, I don't just need to read some long 14-page or 140 pages. Can I have a tool that if I just put some couple of things, I can know if I meet up with the standard? So now it's just more like theoretical, not practical. That's some of the issues I see.
Yeah. I think there's attempts to try and address this issue of getting as many inputs as you can. So, for example, LLMs in the EU AI Act will be regulated through codes of conduct. And there is now open or just closed, I don't know, but a public consultation on how this code of conduct should be done. So that was the opportunity for the industry to go there and say what they want. And answering to your question, and also my closing remarks, because we are getting, time is running by, I think there will be positive spillovers of it. And I think that the companies that will thrive in all this discussion are those who can capitalize on this and understand that doing the right thing, implementing AI ethics, etc., will be a competitive advantage for them in the future. So we get asked questions from clients on a daily basis asking about our best practices in AI. And so my point is people care for it now. And I think the positive spillover will be felt by those companies who understand it and can capitalize on this change.
Yeah, I'm always thinking about, I don't know if you know the book Scary Smart from Mo Gadwat, from ex-former Google. And he said with AI, it's happening what's always happening in the human history. We have something very interesting, interesting technology. People will use it, something bad will happen, and then we will turn it over and make it good. And I was wondering if we are slow with the EU AI Act, but maybe the bad things will happen outside the EU and we will have to turn over then the turning point sooner or maybe later, not sure, but I like this book, really recommendable. And think about that, okay, I cannot neglect that we are slower in innovation with these regulations, but maybe in the end we have good AI sooner or fair AI even better, and then we are role model, and that would be my hope.
Well, just my closing remark. I doubt you're going to own it. So if you don't own something, maybe it's different. It's maybe because I doubt we're going to own anything, because now we depend on US, China for everything. So I don't know. The positive thing is that it's going to change. That's the thing. But if you're going to own it, likely you're not going to own it. They've developed it 15 years ago, and you just want to start, or you are never going to start. So you're going to depend on them. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to change a bit just to make things better. But the only problem is that you may never own it. Just like we never own cloud now. We never own mobile phones. We never own, you can name it. Now we're losing on EVs because there are just so much things that don't allow people to develop and then improve based on figuring things out.
Thanks.